Hey virtual teachers, welcome to the virtual classroom. I'm your host Kimberly Ring, and I'm so pumped that you're here. Last week on Mini Monday PD, we talked about the letter V in virtual, so that's what we're doing, a little series over virtual teachers, and specifically the word virtual. And B stood for vehement. And remember, vehement is being passionate, a little crazy, a little intense maybe, just being really kind of over the top. And we really focused our time on being like over the top with our lessons. I talked about how we use games in my classroom. I just recently shared the escape to spring break with Roblox, and my kids absolutely loved it. And then I also recently saw on Instagram, I'm sorry, I forgot I didn't write it down, and I thought I saved it because it was so good. I wanted to share her name, but then I couldn't find it again. But she did a whole lesson over one of the Shakespeare's, and I feel bad for not remembering it, and it was an escape room, but they were trying to escape the mob that was actually in the play. And I thought that was brilliant. It took something that these kids probably love doing. They probably like going to escape rooms or would like to go to escape rooms, but it's making it specifically in their content. And I found that really, really inspiring because she placed her kids within the content. So they had to know the content in order to escape. And I thought that was brilliant. So shout out to her. I just can't remember who that is. So, great job. And then furthermore, I wanted to touch on it again because since that episode, the next episode with Tracy Fuller came out, and she shared all of her games with me. So if you've liked our Facebook page, there is a group associated with that called the VT Lounge. And within that lounge is all her games, a whole zip file just full of them. So if you're kind of nervous about creating things like that, if you've never created a game like for a battleship or an escape room, something like that, all those resources is in that group. So head on over there and get them for free. You just gotta be a virtual teacher in order to get in. But this week we're talking about the letter I in virtual. So, and for I was inspired by my head of school, Audra Plummer, and the word is intentional. In the 70s, there was a book called The Intentional Teacher, I think it was called, and it's written by Robert somebody, I forget, I apologize. I'll put it in the description of this. But it's all about being an intentional teacher. But I wanted to share what Audra first told us at the beginning of the year. So at the beginning of the year, she gave us like one of these notebooks, and it's an autograph book. So we take it with us whenever we go to like an outing, anytime whenever we go see our kids. So like state testing coming up, maybe this virus, it might be canceled. But anytime we go see our kids, we ask them to sign it. And then I go like full on fangirl with it. Because think back whenever maybe you had an autograph book, if you went to like Disneyland or somewhere like that, and you asked your favorite characters to sign this autograph book and how excited you were. Now I realize they probably didn't feel special. They might have, but you know. But if someone did that for you, if someone was that excited to see you and ask you for your autograph, how do you think that would make you feel? Probably awkward, yes, but also probably very special and humbling, right? I know it would for me. I thought a lot about it in preparation of this, but that's exactly how I want my kids to feel. I want them to feel special. I want them to feel famous in my eyes, and I want them to know that I value them. Now, seeing them sign this and kind of write some things down about themselves, because I also ask things like, what do you like? What do you like to play? Do you play a sport? What's your favorite color? Things like that. And seeing them write tells me a lot of things, but mostly for them, it tells them that I'm intentionally trying to know them. So that's my first advice, is intentionally try to know your kids, and then be intentional with your lessons, creating lessons that they're gonna like. So, for instance, again, my kids love Roblox, they love games, so I use that as my theme a lot. But maybe your kids really like escape rooms. Maybe once a week you do an escape room with them. Maybe they love playing battleships and games like that. Maybe once a week you do that, or I don't know. But the point is to be intentional in making things that they're going to enjoy while still covering the content that you, of course, have to cover. The other thing that we need to be intentional about is our time. Our time is valuable, right? Their time is valuable. So one of the first things that Tracy and I talked about when we were talking about organization on the last episode with Tracy Fuller, we both talked about how we use like our calendar and our Outlook for keeping us on track. So we both make meetings for ourselves for every class that we have. And I have it set up to remind me about 15 minutes before it starts. My classes are 30 minutes long, so about halfway through one class I get a reminder, hey, we're halfway done, and 15 minutes from now your next class starts. And I snooze it and it reminds me about 10 minutes and then 5 minutes. And that just keeps me going. It keeps me on track. Make sure that I use my time wisely. And then also, I use it for, of course, meetings. But also if I have anything that's big coming up, like trainings that need to be done. If I'm grading my teacher-graded assignments, I block off that time and make sure that I really dive into that. Whatever it may be. That's what I use to be intentional with my time. And therefore, things don't get like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this needed to be done. Sometimes that still happens, but most of the time it doesn't. And then also I get things done, and it saves my sanity and lets me focus on other things like creating my lessons. Also, we need to be intentional with our goals. So of course we have long-term goals. If you work for a K-12 school, we are constantly in DDI meetings and focusing on our specific goals for our students. But also we need to be like in the moment. Right? So something that I do with my fourth graders in my small group reading classes is we read a passage. We read the same passage every week. Not the same passage each week, but just every class that week we read the same passage. And they read it orally out loud to me each day. I pop them into breakout rooms, they turn on their mics and webcams, and they read it for a minute. After that, they log how many words they read into a Google form. And that's where I keep track. But I encourage them to write it on a piece of paper, something that they can just keep by their desk, the computer, and track it. So we have an overall goal of reading between 90 and 140 words per minute. But they also have their individual goals. So if I have a student that's reading at 60 words per minute, I'm like, how about tomorrow we aim for 63 or 65, whatever. And I have kids who are reading almost above that goal. And so they have their own individual goal too. Maybe it's not necessarily reading more words. Maybe it's reading with more expression. And so maybe they're reading it super fast, but they're not reading it with, they're just reading it monotone. So their goals are very individualized. And so that's what I encourage you to do too. Know your kids, know what they need, and make those little individual goals in the moment. Also, you're making those long-term goals too during your data-driven instruction meetings as well. And then finally, we need to be intentionally learning. We need to be learning more about what it takes to be a virtual teacher. Did you know that K-12 powered schools, those teachers who've been if you've been working for a K-12 powered school for over a year and you're full time, K-12 will pay up to $5,000 per year for your degree. I got my whole master's paid for. They just won't pay for fees. And so that was almost nothing per credit, maybe $100 per course that I took. So, but the rest of it was for free because I scheduled it right. And I also went to a school where the whole degree only cost $8,000 total. So that was really neat. And now I'm planning on going back to get my doctorates. And that will take me a little bit longer to get K-12 to pay for all of it. But it's still something that I'm going to do. The only catch is that after the last payment you receive for your degree, you have to work for 2 years after that. So for some of you, if you didn't get that much of a payment, it might not be a big deal to pay it back. But if your whole degree costs $8,000 bucks, that might be a big deal. So just keep that in mind whenever if and when you go that route. But there really is no reason for anybody to not have a master's degree if you plan on being here. If you're like me and you plan on never leaving your K-12 power school or just K-12 in general, there's no reason for you to not have a master's degree because K-12 will pay for it. And there's we now have a partnership with, I think, Southern New Hampshire. So there's actually a master's degree in virtual education. So definitely something to consider. However, that might not be the only way. It's not actually the only way, and you don't have to go that route to still be an intentional teacher. We K-12 teachers, you have that K-12 training database with all those trainings in there, all the promising practices recordings are in there. So you could definitely take time to do that. You could do a study on another teacher. You could watch a recording once a week by planning that in advance, by making a calendar invite for yourself and watching one of your co-teachers or a partner teacher or just someone in a different grade. And then also the final and probably the easiest way is just simply through your social media. After work, when you're just scrolling through Facebook or Instagram or wherever, just following a hashtag like virtual teacher or K-12 virtual teacher, something like that, that's intentionally learning too, because there's tons of us that are sharing our ideas and our strategies on there. There's no reason for us to not be inspiring each other and learning from each other. So that's what this is all about. That's what this is all about. This is what I'm talking about here, is that collaboration, connection, and education. So we just need to be intentionally learning somehow, because we all remember that really kind of teacher from elementary school that was stuck in her ways and not very exciting, and we never wanted to be that kind of teacher. Let's definitely not become that teacher. And that takes learning. That takes being innovating and looking for ways to step up our game, right? It just takes a little bit of being intentional with our time to find those resources, to find that inspiration. Just how do you want to, and just make time to do it. It might just be looking through your social media and a specific hashtag each night. It might be doing a training once a week. It might be going back to college, whatever it may be. But regardless, just don't stop learning. Subscribe to this channel and podcasts and just keep getting connected to other teachers and being inspired by others. And you won't have a problem with that. I'm pretty passionate about this educational part, this last one. It's the whole reason why I started these different outlooks and channels and platforms, is because I really want us to be the best. Something really hit me hard is I had a student, and I realized shortly after that I have a lot of students that fall into the category of this is their last resort. Which is sad to say at a 4th grade level, that this school, my school, is their last chance of finding success. And that means that I have to be the teacher that they never had. I have to be the teacher that shows up, is intentional with them, gets to know them, even if it's just a little bit, be excited to see them, and make lessons that they're going to love. It takes extra time, but that's a big honor to have, like to be someone's last hope, to be someone's hero. And that's what you are. You're someone's hero. And probably not just someone, you're probably a lot of people's heroes. And we got to be worthy of that. And that takes intentional teaching and being vehement. So, as always, this is not the end of this conversation. This is only the beginning. So, wherever you're listening to this, please head on over to our social medias, whether it be YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or the Facebook group, wherever it is. I want us to keep talking about being intentional. How are you intentional with your kids? How are you intentional with your families, your time? Because we didn't just talk about lessons and our class connects. We also talked about being intentional with our time management. How are you intentional with your calls? When you call your kids, what does your conversations look like? What do you ask? How are you intentional with your lesson planning? How do you make sure that you don't spend too much time on one piece and then you lose all that time? How are you intentional with your learning? What kind of resources do you use to keep your education going? And then, of course, we're always looking for ways to keep our kids engaged. So maybe you're doing something that hasn't been shared yet. The point is that there's something you might be doing that I'm not thinking of and that other teachers aren't thinking of that could really resonate with one of our students and will be the hero piece that they needed to make things click. So keep talking. This is not the end of the conversation. Let's keep going. So make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening to this, whether it be YouTube or the podcast itself, and turn on your little notification button so that way when new things come out, you're notified. And then sharing is caring. So please share this with your colleagues. Please share this with anybody that you think would really resonate from this. So that way we can connect. That I can connect with them and they can connect with me. Also, something new that we're doing is a podcast, or not the podcast, sorry, that's not new, that's original. But something new that we're doing is the website and a blog. And I would like some guest bloggers. So if you would rather write something down rather than hopping on the podcast and talking to me, I would love that. So please just reach out and I'll fill out a form or make something so that way you can just submit things and I'll plug it in. I'll figure that out and let you all know when it happens, probably on Instagram and other social media outlets. But thank you so much. Again, subscribe, like, share, all of it, and we'll see you next time. Bye.